Working safely in the shop. Eye protection, goggles, face shield, and safety glasses have ANSI 87 certification. Eye wash stations, there can't be any debris or any devices blocking access to an eye wash station. If anything happens, the technician needs to quickly get over there and rinse off whatever splashed in his eyes. Personal safety, long hair has got to be tied back. That's dangerous, can get caught in machinery. Don't have loose-fitting clothes. Jewelry can be caught in rotating objects. Jewelry can also be conductive and can cause burns if there's any current running through it by mistake. And you must have OSHA rated and ANSI rated safety shoes that have reinforced toes. Gloves are common sense. We have different gloves for different types of activities. Important, whatever gets on your skin gets absorbed to your blood. Whatever's in your blood goes to your major organs, and we all know what that causes. So these are safety protocols we want to do every day. Pathogens, staph infections, hepatitis, HIV. If there's any blood that has to be cleaned up according to safety protocols. Exposure to loud noises, loud engines can cause permanent hearing loss. Some of us that have been in the industry for a bunch of years have that concern. So make sure that you're wearing correct earplugs or ear guards in order to keep the sound from hurting your hearing. Respiratory masks when you have dangerous materials like asbestos or other toxic substances. You want to have a respirator on and make sure that the filters are clean and that they're installed correctly. Smoking while working can cause an explosion as a source of ignition, so that's definitely not appropriate. Power tool safety, frayed cords that have the ground connection cut. That's a big no-no, because you become the ground, and that could be serious injury or even a fatality. Fingers in clothing, rotating wheels, you have to be careful. You need safety glasses or a face shield, and some tools have specific manufacturers' instructions to keep you safe. Power tools, electrical, compressed air, hydraulic pressure, can make the job easier, but there's also potential for serious injuries. The guards are there for a reason. Make sure that they're positioned and clean so you can see through them and work safely. Here we have the guards that are on the grinding wheel. Very important that you do not do anything that will cause an electrical or mechanical injury. A small hydraulic press can produce many tons of force, so make sure that there's a way for you to be safe while you're using a press. Sometimes using aluminum and steel together will be helpful. When you're separating gears or bearings from a shaft, you have to use the appropriate tools that'll sandwich in there and get the force that you're trying to apply in the correct spot, especially if it's a bearing race. And you should never exceed the ratings of the pressure. Doing so could cause injury if something let go. Here we have a valve grinding tool. We want to make sure that your hands are clear and that the power plug is correctly situated with a grounding plug. So you have to have your third prong on that plug. Vehicle lift safety. Make sure the lift is completely lowered and that the lift arms are tucked in so you're clear of them. Make sure the lift pads, you have the correct lift pads that are specified for the vehicle lift points, and make sure that the doors and the trunk is closed. Follow lift guide and vehicle manufacturer service information when lifting a vehicle. After the vehicle is raised, be sure the safety mechanism is engaged. Ensure proper contact between the lift and the vehicle. Lift the vehicle about 6 inches and shake it and recheck the contact points. Make sure that the contact points are correctly situated. Okay, uh, lift the vehicle high enough for the technician to do the work. Is a combination of electricity, compressed air, and/or hydraulic pressures utilized to do this. Okay, here's a example of typical lift points on a automotive application. That the correct lift pads have to be under the manufacturer's recommended lift points. When in doubt, stop the job and make sure you get another set of eyes to look at the job and make sure that you're doing it correctly. Hydraulic jack and safety stand information. Never attempt to lift anything that's heavier than the jack's designed for. Typically, in shops, we will use a jack that has at least twice as much as the vehicle's weight lifting capacity. And make sure we're in a good lift point. Okay, hydraulic jack and safety stand safety. You always have to have the safety stand positioned where the load is in the center of the arm that's on the stand, and make sure that you remove the jack after the vehicle is situated on the safety stands. Get the jack out from under the vehicle. That is the correct way to do it. Whenever you're running a vehicle inside, you must hook up the exhaust ventilation. That hose has to be hooked up and be correct so that you're not getting carbon monoxide into the shop. Electrical safety, disconnect the vehicle battery whenever possible. You always disconnect the negative first and reconnect the negative last. Jewelry, you got to be very careful. Jewelry can be conductive and cause injuries. Battery acid is brutal for skin and eyes, and be careful with that. Always charge batteries in a well-ventilated area. Make sure the charger is off and unplugged before you're connecting leads to the battery. And never recharge a battery while the electrical system is running. That creates conflicting voltages to the voltage regulator and can cause damage. When in doubt, connect an additional voltmeter to a battery if you're not sure, and make sure you're not exceeding more than 1.5 volts above the battery's full state of charge. High voltage systems, 600, 800, some electric vehicles are 900 volts. Buses and other electrical transportation can be higher. Orange wires are the standard color code for high voltage. Work area has to be clean, organized, tools and equipment put away and in the correct location, and safety and first aid equipment has to be accessible, and understand the contents of material safety data sheets, what's in the substances that you're using, and how you have to understand how to avoid any injury that may occur. Fire and preventive hazards. Modern internal combustion engines have highly volatile fuel. A diesel is not as combustible or volatile, but it does have microorganisms in it that can cause infections. Solvents and shop rags have to be handled and stored in airtight containers to prevent combustion. We have class A, B, C, and D fires. We all know what they are by now. A is common materials. B is flammable liquids. C being electrical, and D being burning metal. We have government warnings and health hazard classifications for chemical, hazardous, physical, and ergonomic hazards. Chemical is pretty straightforward. The vapors and the dust that comes off of the compounds that are in there is highly poisonous. Gasoline and solvent vapors are toxic. Refrigerants are damaging to the skin and also toxic, and asbestos, it has a variety of bad outcomes. Hazardous waste has to be handled correctly if it's motor oil, and has to be disposed according to regulations. There's EPA guidelines for this, both federal and local regulations. Physical hazards, noise, vibrations, pressures, and temperatures. Shops need to be have those levels under control. Certain tools can be loud or vibrate, so we want to make sure that the technicians have the understanding of safety while they're working with tools and doing other procedures in the shop. OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration was formed to assure safety and health for working condition, has published standards that are known as CFR's, Code of Federal Regulation. Washington State has had safety standards in the workplace long before OSHA was formed. So up here in the Pacific Northwest, they were aware of the occupational hazards that can occur on a job site. Environmental Protection Agency is very broad regulations with many aspects between air, water, and hazardous wastes. Right to know laws. Consumers and people that are in the workforce have the right to know exactly what they're working with and how to protect themselves. Hazardous materials. There's a broad range of hazardous materials in the workplace. We want to know what they are, and we need to know how to protect ourselves. Hazardous wastes have handling procedures and personal protective equipment that's required when you're around them. SHOP is responsible for the safe disposal of hazardous waste, and it has to have good record keeping. For every time hazardous waste leaves the building, you need a receipt that has an EPA form number on it. Drain oil filters for 24 hours. It's a good practice to punch holes in them or crush them and squeeze the oil out, but otherwise you have to drain them for 24 hours. Batteries have to be recycled to a distributor, and refrigerants have to be reclaimed and recycled to the proper facility. Hazardous waste recyclers for solvents, paints, and other wastes are specified for the classification of what type of waste that you are removing from the facility.